After 9 long weeks, we've finally reached the season finale. Feels like I should do something special for this review. Let's do this. The episode starts with a parody of the 1978 Incredible Hulk intro.
Dr. David Banner, physician, scientist, searching for a way to tap into the hidden strengths that all humans have.
Jennifer Walters, Esquire, lawyer, millennial, searching for a way to balance a career and her personal life.
This parody serves no purpose, it has no relevance to this episode, or the previous one, and aside from a single throwaway gag,
Jennifer Walters is a woman at a new low. She has no more fight in
we're not
her.
doing a narrator.
it doesn't come back. It's neat, I guess, but ultimately pointless. Not a productive start. Jen is locked up because of her freakout last episode. She's visited by Pug, Nikki, and Mallory. Jen is eager to identify the individuals behind Intelligentsia. She acts like they have no leads, even though the sex tape was filmed by Josh. Obviously, he's working with them, yet Jen doesn't seem to make this connection. Mallory says they need to focus on her case.
They baited you and you took the bait.
This confirms that Jen's freakout was Intelligentsia's plan.
I was angry, which is how anyone would respond in that situation.
But you're not just anyone. You are an out-of-control Hulk. That's what all the witnesses saw.
This harkens back to Smart Hulk's warning.
You know the damage you can cause? I mean, one mistake, one freakout is literally life or death. Just regular anger means death and destruction for everything and everyone around you when people start seeing you as a monster that never goes away.
Jen gets a plea deal. The DA won't pursue charges if Jen wears an inhibitor. After her release, she's fired from GLK&H and can't find another job. She's forced to move back in with her parents, and public perception of Jen has soured.
A neighbor who wished to remain anonymous said they are uncomfortable knowing an unstable super being lives just next door.
Let me tell you, she was psycho way before she got those superpowers.
All of this serves as the consequences of Jen's recklessness. She refused to take Hulk's warning seriously, and now she's lost her powers, her career, and her reputation. This is a welcome change to the show's usual MO, which is, Jen does something terrible, and either nothing comes of it, or she benefits from it. For once, Jen is held accountable. I sure hope this isn't completely ruined by episode's end. Jen gets to work tracking down Intelligentsia, so she can sue them.
We know that Hulk King is the admin on Intelligentsia, but the site's security is annoyingly airtight.
Since when was Jen a computer hacker? For some reason, they're doing this investigation themselves, rather than contacting a working lawyer or the police. People who have more resources at their disposal. You'd think if Jen were serious about this, she'd want all the help she could get. Having no leads, Jen sulks back to her room.
Can you move the big bookcase for me? Oh, that's right. You can't be Girl Hulk anymore. It's She-Hulk, Mom.
Or was, but never again. Which I know is what I said I wanted, but this doesn't feel right.
Initially, Jen wanted to ignore She-Hulk and focus on her career. But over the course of the season, she realized She-Hulk could be used for personal gain. At the height of exploiting these powers, they were taken away, leaving Jen longing to have them and their perks returned. Jen doesn't seem to understand what she did wrong, and the following line makes that evident.
This isn't even a reluctant superhero story. I'm just getting screwed over.
She believes she's getting screwed over, rather than dealing with the direct results of her irresponsible actions. Nikki posts an embarrassing video of Jen to Intelligentsia, posing as one of them. This lands her an invite to a private event. Nikki and Pug go to infiltrate. For whatever reason, she doesn't tell Jen about this, even though it was Jen spearheading this investigation in the first place. Pug pretends to be a member of Intelligentsia to collect info on them.
Why does there even need to be a She-Hulk? It's not like there's a He-Hulk.
Nothing about this statement makes sense. Like with the trolls in episode 3, he's talking about She-Hulk like she's a fictional character. Why does there need to be a She-Hulk? In-universe, no one chose for She-Hulk to exist. She came about due to unforeseen circumstances. And what does he mean, there's no He-Hulk? Isn't that what Hulk is? Or is he referring to the use of that name specifically? If so, then the answer is that no superhero has been dubbed He-Hulk. Simple as that. As a reference to real-world critics, is this making fun of people who don't like derivative characters? Is that an inherently wrong position to take? What if they're just passionate about originality?
And Lady Thor? Guys, she just sucks, okay? And I'm not just saying that because she's a female. I would have the exact same criticisms if she was a man.
There isn't anything inherently wrong with this statement. We would first need to know what his criticisms of Lady Thor are. Is the joke that he's obviously lying, and that he only hates Lady Thor because she is a woman? But why would he conceal this among men who supposedly 100% agree with him? Todd, the slimy guy Jen went on a date with, is happy to see that Pug is one of them.
This guy rules, all right? You heard it from me first. He rules, and he's hot.
Is the joke that they're gay?
You are gay.
Are the writers implying that men who hate women on the internet are secretly gay? Yeah, not the sort of joke I expected from these writers.
Do you pretend to be blind, man? Because that is really problematic.
Superpower should go to the best person suited for the job.
As with everything said by Intelligentsia, this is treated as a malicious suggestion. But it isn't. In an ideal world, you would want superpowers to only go to the altruistic and responsible. It's just not practical. You can't control who does and doesn't get powers. Maybe we're meant to assume he actually means only men should get superpowers? But again, why would he lie in a room full of people who think the same?
You think she boned Holloway? That's their boss.
Like you're mad about it.
Yeah, and it pisses me off.
The show is attempting to paint Todd as an asshole for assuming Jen got her job not through merit, but by unfair means. Except that's exactly what happened.
We just started a superhuman law division, and I want you, well, the She-Hulk, to be the face of it. I'll expect you to be at work and in court as the She-Hulk.
Oops. Though he's a little off the mark, they've accidentally given Todd a valid complaint. The show is so incompetent it can't even strawman properly. The writers have doubled down on demonizing the critics, yet fail in the attempt. They've tried putting the fans' criticisms into the mouths of the villains, but they either make no sense in context or aren't the hateful comments the writers think they are. Jen decides to pay Blonsky a visit at his meditation retreat. Shortly after she arrives, Wrecker directs her towards a lodge where he's hosting a private event. Meanwhile, Todd introduces the Abomination. Is Blonsky working with Intelligentsia? Does this explain the lies and inexplicable reformation?
Nope.
The dialogue makes it clear that Blonsky doesn't even know what Intelligentsia is. He was hired by Todd to give a speech and only knows the vague things he told him.
I would like to introduce our very special guest speaker. He cost a ton, so you better cheer.
It's really an honor to be your humble life coach for the evening. I hear your group has all been making amazing progress. Every single person seizing their goal. Todd here has told me that you were all unsatisfied with your place in the world.
Although I'm not sure why a group that loves the Hulk would be stoked to hear from the guy that tried to kill him. He says some motivational phrases when Jen walks in, shocked and upset to see that Blonsky has broken his parole.
Emil, you've been transforming into the Abomination.
Yeah, I do speaking engagements. Nothing bad, strictly for profit.
So he's an idiot.
Blonsky has risked going back to prison to make some extra cash, when by all accounts, he was doing just fine. The show has raised a plethora of questions concerning Blonsky, and it's failed to answer a single one. Why did he want Jen to represent him, especially since she could have been biased against him? Why did he lie about the events of the Incredible Hulk? How did he go from a power-hungry fighter to a peaceful life coach? Why was he willing to risk going back to prison for something so stupid? None of these questions have been answered, and they likely never will be. He's one more character assassination to add to the list. Todd is revealed to Jen as the mastermind behind Intelligentsia. I'd like to remind everyone that Jen started this episode trying to track down her doxers. Her investigation went nowhere, and now she stumbled upon them by complete accident. Brilliant storytelling. Todd reveals,
Your attractive date, Josh. I hired him to seduce you and steal your blood. Oh, my team also synthesized your blood, so it could safely give me all the powers you never should have been given in the first place.
It would take extensive research into Bruce's blood to be able to do something like this, which is why only 2 scientists could ever be called experts in the field, Bruce himself and Samuel Stearns. I highly doubt Stearns would give Hulk powers to a random schmuck like Todd, which means he's found a scientist capable of synthesizing Jen's blood with only a small sample and little time to do so. While this scenario isn't impossible, it's highly improbable. But when did Josh steal Jen's blood? It must have been the night they bonked, but we didn't see him do it. And that wouldn't have worked anyway. Jen's not sleeping through a needle in her arm, and even if she did, she would have noticed the painful mark the next morning. Did he steal one of her menstrual pads? Because that wouldn't be enough blood. The writers have cheated to get this payoff. So Todd is responsible for everything. But what are his motivations? The following line offers clarification.
I didn't just get handed superpowers. I had to earn them.
This follows up something he said earlier.
Is She-Hulk better than the Hulk? Is she as strong as him? Is she as smart as him? No! She wouldn't even have her powers without him. So why do we have to act like she earned everything?
But how does he know this? May I remind you, Jen has made few public appearances, and she's never talked about her powers' origins. They could have gotten this info from her phone, but this seems to be his core motivation, and they only got access to her phone recently. Todd is primarily motivated by an event he couldn't possibly know about, making all of his actions, and therefore the actions of Intelligentsia, one giant gaping plot hole. Putting aside that issue, we can conclude that Todd resents Jen for receiving power and privilege without cost, which happens to be a shockingly accurate criticism. After accidentally becoming a Hulk, she mastered this new power immediately, skipping the years of suffering and hardship Bruce had to endure. She then used this power to get a job at a prestigious law firm, the attention of attractive men, and the adoration of the public. The show has accidentally made the bad guy correct. While it's not unusual to give some validity to a villain's perspective, the show has made it clear Intelligentsia isn't meant to be taken seriously, so I could only attribute this to astoundingly bad writing. Regardless, Todd hates She-Hulk. Or does he? If he hates her, why has he been trying to hook up with her? It couldn't have been to get her blood, because his last attempt was in episode 8, after Josh had already accomplished his mission. The more you think about Todd and Intelligentsia, the less they make sense. In general, Todd feels out of place to me. He was a throwaway character suddenly turned into the big bad. He doesn't even work as a twist villain. He was introduced as a piece of shit, and then revealed to be still a piece of shit. I think Josh should have been the mastermind instead. Because of his intimate relationship with Jen, this confrontation would be more meaningful. Jen would be challenged emotionally, not just physically. He could use their relationship to taunt Jen, saying things like, "No one could actually love someone as terrible as you." This would emotionally compromise Jen, but it would also trigger some much-needed introspection and character growth. In the end, she would overcome her flaws to defeat Josh and prove his criticisms wrong, becoming a better person in the process. These possibilities are lost by Todd being the big bad, someone she has no emotional connection with. Nikki barges in. I don't know why. Most characters in the show aren't very bright, but she's been unusually dumb this episode. First, she encourages Jen to kill people after Jen got in trouble for a violent freakout.
And then we will find them and we will destroy them. By any and all means.
Legally.
I said by any and all means.
Then, when she discovers where Intelligentsia is meeting, she doesn't tell Jen about it. And finally, during their infiltration mission, after losing contact with Pug, she decides it's a good idea to just barge in when she hasn't a clue what's happening, breaking their cover.
Congratulations, you're a failure.
And then all hell breaks loose. Todd injects himself and transforms into a Hulk.
This can't possibly be where this season was going.
What are you talking about? This was blatantly set up all the way from episode 1.
It's way too dangerous to get out in the world, even if there's only a millionth % chance that it makes another one of us.
Okay.
He attacks Jen. Blonsky transforms to protect her. Titania crashes through a wall and starts fighting people. Smart Hulk drops in from the ceiling and, misunderstanding his intentions, charges at Abomination. All the while, Jen gives commentary.
Titania too? This isn't messy enough? What is even happening here? This is a mess. None of these storylines make any sense.
You know the phrase, from bad to worse? Well, this is where things go from bad to irredeemably broken. And I'm not exaggerating. Jen, I can't believe I'm saying this. Jen hulks out and breaks into the Disney Plus UI. She then makes her way to the Marvel production studio so she can question the writers about the direction of her finale.
What the hell was that?
The first thing to figure out is, what is this place? Is it meant to be the real world? Well, it can't be, because no one reacts to She-Hulk like a normal person would. And shortly, we'll discover that sci-fi tech like retinal scans exist. Therefore, this must be an aspect of the MCU's reality, similar to the TVA or the gap junction. This means its existence has important effects on the wider MCU. Jen complains to the writers about the plot of the episode.
The bad guy steals my blood in order to give himself superpowers. Where did you come up with that original idea? Every other superhero story ever? Okay.
Previously, the show lampshaded its flaws, such as its reliance on cameos to garner attention. Now, it's straight up telling the audience that one of its major plot lines is stupid. The show has just delivered a middle finger to anyone at all invested in its plot. Jen wants the story changed, but the writers can only do what Kevin wants. They then proceed to suck off Kevin Feige with the power of 1,000 vacuums.
Kevin's value is immeasurable, okay?
You'll never even get close to him.
I would murder you to protect Kevin.
Jen goes to talk to him, but several security guards stand in her way. Even though she could easily walk past them, because she's a Hulk, she decides she wants to beat the shit out of them. Okay, we can add assault to Jen's list of charges. It's then revealed that Kevin is a fucking robot, and he's responsible for crafting every event in the MCU. He'll answer Jen's questions as long as she reverts back into human form.
The visual effects team has moved on to another project.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it.
I possess the most advanced entertainment algorithm in the world, and it produces near-perfect products. Some are better than others, but I leave that debate up to the internet.
The show's philosophy is antithetical to that viewpoint. It's made its critics the villains, and painted them as stupid misogynists.
They took the Hulk's manhood away, but then they gave it to a woman?
My friend sent me a link to a video posted on that site, Intelligentsia.
The one for hateful man babies?
I don't care what a bunch of losers say about me online. Can't even say it to my face because they know they get Hulk smashed.
The creature is driven by rage and pursued by online trolls.
Intelligentsia is made up of exclusively dumb dudes.
The show obviously doesn't think the internet has the right to debate its quality. Jen says she's unhappy with her story. Kevin says she doesn't have a choice. It's his story, not hers.
Regardless of creative ownership, can we agree that it is a legal comedy?
Only by technicality.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe is known for its big spectacles and high-stakes plot lines.
I feel like Jen's missed the mark. I'd argue the MCU is best known for its overarching narrative and characters that develop across many movies. These elements can be fundamentally boiled down to continuity, something the show, and Phase 4 in general, has completely abandoned. But what did you expect from a show that can hardly remember what's happening scene to scene? Jen states that a common complaint is that all Marvel movies end the same way, which is true to a degree. We often get a nonsensical CGI fest that feels disconnected from the rest of the story.
Perhaps this is a result of following some unwritten rule that you have to throw a bunch of plot and flash and a whole blood thing that seems super suspiciously close to super soldier serum at the audience in the climax.
The radiation-resistant serum that gave Bruce his powers was literally part of a program aiming to recreate the super soldier serum. It seems suspiciously close because it is literally that.
I propose we don't have to do that. It distracts from the story.
Jen is annoyed because the story is distracting from the story. This was all set up in the first episode.
It's way too dangerous to get out in the world, even if there's only 1,000,000% chance that it makes another one of us.
Okay.
When you have powers like this, it's like putting a target on your back and the backs of all the people you care about.
This blood plot has been an aspect of the story since the beginning. Why is Jen acting as if this isn't the case? Have the writers forgotten their own scripts? Jen then presents the thesis of the show.
It distracts from the story, which is that my life fell apart right when I was learning to be both Jen and She-Hulk.
That is most definitely not the story. At first, Jen didn't want to use She-Hulk at all. She saw it as incompatible with her career-focused life. She then discovered that She-Hulk could be used for personal gain. It got her a prestigious job, success in dating, attention, and power. Jen's speech in episode 7 clarified that she doesn't view She-Hulk as her true self, but like a suit she can step into whenever she chooses. She wants to be valued as Jen, her real self, rather than as She-Hulk.
You know in high school, that friend that you have that's like cooler than you are, like more attractive and athletic, and they get all the attention from everyone? You think life would be so much easier if I were that person, and I can turn into that person anytime I want to. And everyone pays attention when I'm this, but it feels like cheating. Because would they like me if I didn't have all of this? Would the same guys who like She-Hulk stick around for Jen? Because some of them don't.
This conflict was resolved by the others inflating Jen's ego, telling her that she's amazing, incredible, and all the other adjectives. But in the following episode, rather than focus on being Jen like they suggested, she just continued to do what she normally does. Exploit She-Hulk for personal gain. There was nothing to indicate that episode 7 led to any growth, and there was certainly nothing to indicate that she was learning to be both Jen and She-Hulk. This thesis is bupkis. After incorrectly declaring what the story is about, well,
this is where it gets complicated.
Jen proposes fixes to the finale.
Well, can we not do Todd gets Hulk powers? Like, the powers aren't the villain. He is.
Right. Todd is the villain, and by gaining Hulk powers, he becomes more of a threat. For the first time since the pilot, Jen is forced to deal with a foe of equal or superior strength. Simply becoming She-Hulk won't automatically fix the problem this time.
Erasing blood plot.
Are you fucking serious? This storyline that has been running throughout Season 1, that has had several important scenes dedicated to it, was just erased. Just like that. It's a get-out-of-jail-free card. Rather than face a foe she can't physically intimidate, rather than deal with the ramifications of ignoring Smart Hulk's warnings, rather than learn from the consequences of her recklessness, the threat just gets magically erased from the story. All of this buildup has come to nothing.
You get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
And Bruce swooping down from literal outer space to save the day in my story?
Jen is as self-centered as always. Even the idea that she would need help from someone stronger and more experienced than herself is offensive.
Just remember whose show this actually is.
She wants the spotlight, and isn't willing to share it, even if it's to defeat a villain. Also, we were teased with a rematch between Hulk and Abomination. These characters haven't interacted since the Incredible Hulk, making this moment ripe for meaning and characterization. But it only lasted a second and now it's been retconned out of existence.
Disappointed!
But Bruce is supposed to return to explain what he was doing
No, we don't need to hear any of that.
But we were going to introduce...
Save it for the movie.
We're denied an explanation for the event that kicked off the whole show. Without the random spaceship, we get no She-Hulk, no Intelligentsia, nothing. The show has flat out refused to justify the most critical event in the story, making every subsequent event the product of contrivance. I guess they'll explain it later, but it's something that needed to be in this show. Jen starts asking random questions about the MCU.
What's with all the daddy issues? We got Tony Stark, daddy issues.
Jen.
Thor, daddy issues.
Please stop.
Oh, and when are we getting the X-Men?
I cannot tell you that.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
The writers have spent much of the show demonstrating just how ignorant they are about their audience. Now they want to pretend like they totally get them and are on their side. I feel embarrassed for them.
You obliterated the thrilling ending Kevin formulated.
That's what Hulks do. We smash things. Bruce smashes buildings, I smash fourth walls and bad endings.
And now we've reached the ultimate form of lampshading. The show has blatantly admitted it wrote this episode bad on purpose. They tried to make shit, and they succeeded in making shit. Way to go, guys. You did it. This sequence destroys any and all stakes. Jen can now rewrite reality for her benefit. There don't exist any circumstances where Jen is actually in danger. There are no inconveniences she can't delete, no consequences she can't subvert. The show recognizes this is a problem, and tries to patch it up with a throwaway line.
You will not be able to access the KEVIN again.
What?
That error on our platform has been fixed.
But it's too late. They've let the genie out of the bottle. It doesn't matter if Jen has access to Kevin or not. Kevin still exists, and he still has the power to change reality on a whim. This is made all the worse by the show's inability to enforce consequences for Jen. It will forever linger in the back of the audience's minds. Did Jen succeed of her own abilities? Or did Kevin rewrite the universe to make it so? And this sequence raises many additional questions. How does Jen perceive her reality? If she understands that it's all a story crafted by an AI, does she view the people around her as real? Does she attribute their actions to them or to that higher power? Is she alone, free from Kevin's control? Is she the only person in the entirety of the MCU that controls her own actions? Events from later in the episode seem to suggest this is the case.
And Abomination?
After all that, I just want him to hold himself accountable. You understand that if you sign this, you go back to prison for 10 years for violating your parole.
Yep. It's the karmic price I pay for my actions.
Oh, would not mind seeing Daredevil again.
Jen, I'm here to help.
Hey, Daredevil.
Did the writers not consider the ramifications this has on the wider MCU? I thought it was bad enough when Loki established there was no free will, but this is worse. Not only is there no free will, but the universe can be altered in any way regardless of logic or consistency. The MCU is now a universe that inherently and canonically doesn't make cohesive sense.
You maniac! You blew it up! Damn you all to hell!
I'll touch more on this topic at the end. The story resumes. Bear with me, as the following events are next level confusing due to what just transpired. The police have arrived and arrest Todd. But why? What's he charged with? It can't be for attacking Jen, since he only did that after becoming a Hulk, which has now been erased from the show. Is it because he doxed Jen? But there's still no proof of that. And getting him arrested wasn't even Jen's plan. It was to sue him.
How am I supposed to sue these guys if I don't know who they are?
The show is in such a rush to end this plotline that police have spawned out of nowhere to arrest him for no reason. And the worst part is, I think that's canonically what's meant to be happening. Jen approaches Todd as She-Hulk. He expects her to attack him, but she reverts back into human form and says,
I'll see you in court, babe.
This is treated like a moment of growth, but it's unearned. Jen has been prone to lashing out in anger. Suddenly, this has changed, but we get no explanation as to why. At first, you might assume she's learned her lesson because of last episode, when lashing out cost her She-Hulk her job and her reputation. But if you recall, Jen doesn't understand what she did wrong.
This isn't even a reluctant superhero story. I'm just getting screwed over.
And none of the following events indicate any change in attitude. This event is meant to convince the audience that character growth has occurred, but it's put in no work to earn it. Daredevil drops in from the sky to help Jen, but he's missed all the action.
And I'm happy to see you.
Oh, thanks. Happy to see you too.
I'm blind!
Blonsky hands himself over to the police for his parole violation.
It's the comic price I pay for my actions.
Maybe you can write some haikus about it.
All right, Blonsky. Sarcasm?
Can't wait to read them.
Why is Jen acting like a total cunt to him? He didn't transform to do anything nefarious. It was just because some clients hired him to do it. Stupid? Yes. Villainous? No. He even protected her from Todd. Or he would have protected her from Todd had that sequence not been deleted. I guess Jen would still have the memories of those events, so it still counts from her point of view. Is she treating him this way because of how it reflects on her career? That's the only thing that makes sense to me. Jen's attitude is also hypocritical, as she also broke her inhibitor and transformed.
I'm just gonna break this inhibitor real quick. All right.
Wait a fucking minute. Jen also violated the terms of her release by hulking out. Why isn't she being arrested too?
Kevin!
We cut to Jen having a barbecue with her family and Matt. Jen's dad starts grilling Matt on how much money he makes.
It's very expensive raising kids in LA.
He's staying for a week.
I did not think the conversation was going that way.
Jeez. He stuck his Charlie Cox in her one time and suddenly everyone thinks they're married. Smart Hulk shows up. He introduces everyone to his son, Skaar.
Look at the top of his head.
The writers have decided to introduce this monumental development by casually tossing it at the end of the episode. As a joke.
Wow, you're a family.
We get no build-up and no explanation. The revelation just sits there with no impact and no purpose. Isn't it a common complaint of Marvel movies that they always need to advertise the next Marvel thing? I thought the show was all about subverting those criticisms.
It's often said that Marvel movies all end the same way. Perhaps this is a result of following some unwritten rule that you have to throw a bunch of plot and flash at the audience in the climax. I propose we don't have to do that. It distracts from the story.
I guess not.
After a criminal conspiracy came to light, She-Hulk, the superpowered woman known as the cousin of the Hulk, has been cleared of her previous conviction.
Oh, come on!
The fuck is he talking about? Regardless of whether she was provoked, Jen still went on a rampage. At this point, Jen has eluded all consequences set up from last episode. A dangerous plot to use her blood gets magically erased. Intelligentsia gets arrested, even though there's no crime to charge them with. Jen breaks her court orders and hulks out with no punishment. And now the original charges have been dropped, just cuz.
You know what's bullshit?
This show is bullshit. When I titled my last video, Jen finally faces consequences, I decided to put a question mark at the end. And this episode has vindicated that decision. While I hoped Jen would finally deal with the consequences of her actions, I also knew the finale had the potential to undercut this. I just never expected it would be to this extent.
People like Todd Phelps have to be held responsible for their actions.
The problem with you is you're completely delusional.
These have to be the least self-aware writers that have ever put pen to paper.
The message we're sending is that if you attack, harm, or harass innocent people, I'm coming for you.
Bitch, you've attacked, harmed, and harassed innocent people.
Do you mean in the courtroom or as a superhero?
Both.
And we get yet another moment of quote-unquote growth. Last episode, she was considering becoming a superhero because it could be used to bolster her career. Now she's committed to the idea, but there's been nothing in the episode to push her towards this decision. It's not a contradiction, it's just underdeveloped. It's also a moment of shallow altruism. Jen is a superhero for personal gain, not because it's the right thing to do. We then cut to credits. Wait, where's the trial? Jen insisted upon going with the legal comedy resolution over the typical Marvel ending, but we don't even get to see it? So they tossed aside the original conclusion and replaced it with nothing. How did the writers think this would be at all satisfying? In the mid-credits scene, Blonsky is visited by Wong in prison. Because despite becoming aware of how sorcerers can effortlessly portal into high-security facilities, Damage Control has made no efforts to prevent this happening again.
You took your time. You got sucked into another show, didn't you?
We're really in an era of peak TV.
And in the final scene of the season, we get our first instance of a character other than Jen breaking the fourth wall, because the show spits on the concept of consistency. And peak TV. This episode was far worse than I could have predicted. Overall, the finale is a series of convoluted events haphazardly stitched together, culminating in the ultimate nuking of the shark, transforming it into this grotesque thing, hobbling around pretending it's a real story. As this is the finale, I think it appropriate to look back on these 9 episodes and sum up my thoughts on the season as a whole. Let's talk about Jen. She's one of the worst characters I've had the displeasure of encountering. She's hypocritical, self-obsessed, self-centered, judgmental, inconsiderate, reckless, and immoral. And the worst part is, the show insists otherwise and shields her from the consequences of her actions. Characters constantly validate her shittiness and inflate her ego.
That was so good. I almost cried during parts of it. It's amazing. It's so great.
That's really smart.
You're not the only genius in the family.
And she is going to be a megastar.
You can do better. You deserve better.
Female Lawyer of the Year?
Because I bet Jen is pretty damn great.
And her opponents are made stupid and ineffective, so she appears more impressive by comparison.
How would you characterize Mr. Bukowski?
Self-absorbed, chauvinistic, conceited.
Sorry.
That's why I'm an entrepreneur.
In what field?
TBD.
More real magic.
Oh my God, even the lawyer's a magician. And you made my dumb client admit to being even dumber than I thought he was in court.
Intelligentsia is made up of exclusively dumb dudes.
The show was one big masturbatory session for Jen.
You flipped too hard, damn it!
Despite the show's insistence, Jen hasn't grown at all. There are moments that act as though growth has occurred, but they're either unearned or hollow. This is because the writers want Jen to appear to grow, but don't want to admit she has major flaws to begin with, so we end up with a character that is perpetually stuck in limbo. And the show is constantly contradicting itself when it comes to Jen. She's permitted to do basically whatever she wants, without retribution, despite espousing the need for those with power to be held accountable for their actions.
What is the responsibility of those with power? Do they merely have an obligation to refrain from the misuse of that power? Or do they have a duty to protect those without it? Show them that they will be held accountable, because those with the most power have the most to answer for. After all that, I just want him to hold himself accountable. People like Todd Phelps have to be held responsible for their actions.
The show spends a lot of time telling us her virtues while showing us the opposite. For instance, Jen is meant to be a great lawyer, but we're shown that she's one of the worst. For Blonsky's parole hearing, all she did was call some witnesses, despite having info that could exonerate him of his original crime.
The serum the government gave you caused your subsequent actions?
She's only able to help Wong in his case against Donnie Blaze by threatening to kill him. When hit with a lawsuit, her first instinct is to represent herself, despite this being a basic no-no. And she lost the case against Jacobson because she didn't even bother to ask Leapfrog some basic questions. She sucks ass. The show is built on a foundation of sand. We have an origin that occurs due to an unexplained contrivance, giving Jen powers that don't obey any consistent rules. The conceit of the show is that Jen works at a wacky superhuman law firm. This only happens because Jen gets fired for saving lives. And that only happens because Titania, for no reason, crashed into a courtroom and started attacking people. The entire premise of the show collapses in on itself, and this lazy writing is standard for the whole show. Characters commit to radical actions without motivation, and the rules of the world bend and twist to accommodate the plot. The writers seem to understand that this is poor writing, but they don't care. They think some lampshading is all that's needed to excuse it.
I just want to make sure that you don't think this is one of those cameo every week type of shows. Well, except Bruce. And Blonsky. And Wong. God, everybody loves Wong. It's like giving the show Twitter armor for a week. We smash things. Bruce smashes buildings, I smash fourth walls and bad endings.
That's what the finale is. One giant lampshade. I expect for people to argue that She-Hulk is a comedy, therefore it doesn't need to adhere to logic. This is wrong on multiple levels. First of all, even though it's a comedy, it attempts to pay off meaningful character arcs and high-stakes plot lines. For the audience to be at all invested, there needs to be a coherent through line. Otherwise, why should they care? If Wong can be deemed a criminal of the US in one episode, and then nonchalantly appear in a courtroom the next, how is there meant to be any stakes? Second of all, She-Hulk isn't a standalone property. It's a part of a wider cinematic universe, building off of numerous projects that came before it. As a sequel is bound by the rules of its predecessor, She-Hulk is bound by the rules of the MCU. Otherwise, what's the point of this being an interconnected universe? You can't pick and choose what counts. It doesn't work like that. Either it's a part of the MCU, or it isn't. She-Hulk continues the downward trend of Hulk's character. He's been once more robbed of his confidence, with insecurity, jealousy, and pettiness left in its place. There's an overwhelming air of disrespect surrounding him. He does everything he can to help Jen, and in return, his experiences are belittled and his trauma is mocked. He's then promptly kicked out of the show because Jen can't bear to give him even an iota of credit.
And Bruce swooping down from literal outer space to save the day in my story?
It comes across like the show is written by people who hate the Hulk. But it isn't all negative. His strong moral backbone remains intact. He believes that power comes with responsibility, and unlike Jen, he lives this principle.
We can live between what we want and what is, but we can't pretend like we aren't two of the few people on Earth that can actually protect her.
Despite the humiliation, he holds strong to these values and remains a heroic character. He may have been brought down even lower, but some of that old character still remains. We can only hope the damage is one day repaired. The pilot painted every male character as either incompetent or malicious. Since then, the show has gotten better about this. Barely. Characters like Jen's dad and Blonsky aren't vilified, but they're still often the butt of jokes. Daredevil gets treated with some respect, but that might only be because Jen's sopping wet for him.
Oh, would not mind seeing Daredevil again. A woman has needs. Well, yeah, that's what Hulks do. We smash things. I smash fourth walls and bad endings. And sometimes Matt Murdock.
In general, men are painted in a poor light. Jen's dating life is abysmal, and the show puts the blame on men being generally shitty people. Even those that appear to be good guys are eventually thrown under the bus. The handsome, suave, understanding doctor is depicted as an asshole.
What that extremely attractive man said in there, you can do better. You deserve better.
And Josh is secretly a villain. Daredevil is the only exception, though as previously demonstrated, Jen's only interested in sex, not a relationship. So his character, beyond the superficial, is kind of irrelevant. I also suspect Marvel forbade the writers from demonizing him. After all, he's a popular character with a new series on the way. Intelligentsia is the big bad of the season, and every member is depicted as a stupid, pathetic misogynist. And their existence is meant to be an insult towards the show's critics, suggesting that only man-babies could possibly hate She-Hulk. Suffice it to say, the show has a low opinion of men, which is a good way to drive away your core audience. Now let's return to that scene, where the writers deliberately and gleefully sabotage their own story. They intentionally created a plot full of holes and contradictions, so the main character could point this out and fix it. And by fix it, I mean break it even more. Did the writers think they were being clever? Did they think this would shield them from criticism? This episode annihilates any and all stakes from the story. In universe, these are not a series of events playing out due to cause and effect. Rather, they are forced to happen by an AI that isn't beholden to canon or continuity. Based on the rules set up in this episode, anything can happen and no reason need be given. It also destroys the audience's investment. If anything can happen regardless of logic, why should they care? If Jen makes a huge mistake, why should they worry for her? The universe can just be rewritten to get her out of trouble. Nothing matters. Consequently, the characters lack free will. They don't act to achieve their own goals based on their own motivations. They are puppets that can be made to do whatever Kevin pleases. In a way, this explains why previously established characters act nothing like themselves, and why actions don't correlate to the appropriate consequences. Jen alone possesses free will. The world is literally molded for her benefit, validating her exaggerated sense of self-importance. This means that she has free reign to act however she pleases, because there will never be any real threat of consequences. Therefore, there cannot exist an impetus to improve, and thus she will forever remain an awful person. You might think I'm reading too much into this. I disagree. When breaking the fourth wall was just used to tell jokes, it was fine to ignore these heavier questions. After all, these moments didn't impact the story, and so could be considered non-canon in the context of the universe. But that's changed. Now it has real and strong influence on the world, changing it from a comedic device to a fundamental mechanic of the MCU. And the audience has to work with the info they're given. If you demonstrate that anything can happen without rhyme or reason, can you blame them for concluding there's no longer any stakes or meaning? Can you blame them for feeling like this was a waste of time? For any aspiring writers, please, learn from She-Hulk's mistakes. You need to think about what you add to your stories. Everything you toss in has a ripple effect, impacting the world, the plot, the characters, the tone, the theme, everything. If you're not considerate, you may end up like She-Hulk, and unintentionally destroy everything you've sought to create.